All right, welcome back to the program. Let's quickly take our agenda for today addressing Forex supply issues. My guest is joining me right now, Professor Ken Ife, who is a development economist. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for joining us on today's edition of the program.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Prof, since the CBN announcement on floating of the Naira, um, you know, a lot of people have different definitions actually of what that announcement means. But I would like you perhaps in just 1 minute explain to people that do not understand what floating of the Naira means, what was done before, what the CBN used to call managed float. I had to take a look at even the history of CBN's, participation in the FX market, and it's been decades and many, many years. So please explain what was happening before and what is happening now.
Anyway, usually we are running a free market, and one of the characteristics of a free market is that you like to leave things to market forces to resolve itself. And what it means in effect is that you allow the forces of supply and demand to establish an equilibrium price, and those equilibrium prices shift over time. They are never constant, unless you have intervention. They tip to shift depending on the levels of supply and demand at any point in time. If a country wants to have a fixed rate, then you should be prepared to subsidize that, which means that when the thing is floating and then it flows in a negative direction, you put in money to bring it back. But in this particular case, we before now, the central bank was quite concerned about the demand side of our currency. And the fact being that the demand seems to be significantly exceeding the supply of dollars available. And dollar is the culprit actually here because we have tried things like doing currency swap with yuan with China. And I have thought that that was going to help reduce the pressure on dollar. Over 60% of world debt is denominated in dollar. And that is actually why you are having ripples now on the international scene and you have the BRICS moving against the dollar. So a lot of stuff behind that thing. But in our own case, our dollar supply is primarily from our petroleum products. If you look at crude accounts for 79% of our dollar supply, and then gas accounts for 11%. So between the two of them is about 90%. Now, the other 10% are mainly diaspora remittance. Then you have, and you know, diaspora remittance can be anything between 24 billion to 26 billion. It can actually go more. I'm sure it could be significantly more if the market allows it to buy at a good rate. Then the second one is foreign direct investment. Now, foreign direct investment, by its definition, it has to be seen to be flowing in and it has to be a certain percentage, over 10%. It's restricted in its definition anyway. It doesn't take into account the fact that somebody like Dangote has put $19 billion into a refinery. It doesn't pick it up as that. But anyway, that particular category of investment is shying away from a lot of things. It shies away from insecurity. It shies away from paucity of infrastructure. And, it looks at a lot of things because you are asking people to bring the money, come and invest here. Some will invest and stay with investment, but are concerned about their lives. They're concerned about the security of those investments and the assets and all of that. And then are they actually going to borrow money to make infrastructure happen around their factories? They're worried about it. And they're a highly competitive business. There are over $100 trillion of floating sovereign funds wanting to go and invest. There's no shortage of them, but there's a shortage of countries that are ready to receive this investment in terms of investment readiness. So that has been declining in real terms when coming into Nigeria. Something like from 8 billion a quarter and all that, getting down to less than 1 billion. It's very small now. Then you have another one, foreign portfolio investment. And those ones can flow in various directions. They can flow into company assets, to investment into stocks and shares. companies, or you can flow into buying securities. For example, government securities, like where it depends on the yield there. The yield is what will determine whether they are going to patronize that market. But more importantly, they're also concerned about how quickly they can exit the market. So are you going to give them the dollar to exit the market? So they can come, but they don't want to come into the instruments where they will be getting, like if you look at government securities now. So you could see that some of them are about 5%, 4%, 6%. So how many of them are prepared to come and buy that only for inflation to eat it up at 22.4? So they may not want to do that. But some of them are flowing into companies where they're taking a longer term, medium to longer term view of the company's performance. But also not just the ones flowing from outside. There's also the ones from inside, because people who bought the government security, some of them will now want to remove them because the yield has come down significantly from 15, 13, 14% down to 5. They will move them away and take them to companies. Although in the company, if you're buying shares in the company, and you can see how banks are performing very well. If you're buying shares there, you don't give too high. It's only about 2-3 years. You allow it there, then you will be a superior performance. So there's a lot of that movement going on. Because the yield are coming down on treasury bills.
Okay. Okay, Prof, you've just given me a typical answer of a prof. You delved into a lot of issues, but let me, come back and try to condense some of the things that you have said. Now, let's quickly take a look at, since this announcement, the concern has really been where this Forex supply would come from, where the dollars will come from. I heard you clearly. You talked about the diaspora remittances, which is over 20 billion. Talked about FDI, but we know that FDI will not just start trickling into the country in the short term. FDI is also still dependent on policies of government, the reforms that will go on, and foreign investors will see that perhaps Nigeria is ready for business and bring in their foreign exchange. But where in the immediate term can we get FX for the market? Do you think that we have enough supply right now? Because you've been seeing even the way the Naira has been depreciating against the dollar has been topsy-turvy. Yesterday it was 768 at the I&E window.
No, we don't have enough. Let me explain something. From 2014, NNPC used to send about $3 billion every month to central bank. But though they also come back to take some of that money to enable them import fuel and all that stuff. But what has happened for over the last 2 years, they haven't actually been sending. And even the governors have not been getting some of those money from excess accounts. So what then happened was that I think just not too far away, they now started doing 300 million a month, but that's 10% of what they should have been sending. And the reason is that the NNPC did a currency swap, not currency, I beg your pardon, crude swap with foreign refiners. They send them the crude, they refine, and then they send back PMS. Now, on a normal day, that will be a business that will give you profit, because there are many people who are in the refining business. But that's not what happened here. What happened here is that they get the PMS, and then they do their calculation, and they turn around and say to government, oh, wait a minute, you're owing us, so there's under recovery. What will cost us to bring this fuel is even higher than what we would have got if we were to sell the crude. So the difference is go and borrow 500 billion naira every month and pay to us. That's under recovery. But you see, the reason for, a lot of reasons go into this. NNPC is carrying heavy dead weights. Can you imagine they have 4 refineries, gigantic refineries, and they're paying salaries for workers for not working. And then look at so many dead assets that they have that are actually, and during the PIA, it looks like government was prepared to bail them out of some of those dead assets. But I don't think it has happened because of the financial situation. So that is what sympathy that you could have for them. But again, you have to also remember that we are in a market where it's got to be competitive. So the fact of the matter is this: CBN requires $1.8 billion every month to disburse. they're getting only about 300 from NMPC. Now, apart from the CBN $1.8 billion they require, they have to use this money to service our foreign denominated, dollar-denominated loans. They have to provide for imports, for manufacturers. They have to provide for medical, all kinds of things. Then you have the demand from the importers, about $4.6 billion every month. So when you add the CBN requirement to the importers requirement, it will all be heading to $7 billion against what receipts. The receipts is just about 300 million from here, and then you have diaspora remittance. It's not enough. It's very big gap, very big gap. So you have to be thinking about how to close that gap. Now, and part of the argument that follows from how to close this gap is, why is it that we are importing the fuel? Because it is the importation of that fuel that clears out all the revenue we would have got in dollars. So then you turn back again and said, okay, why is it that these refineries are not working? If the refineries are not working, what other options do we have? And that's where people will tell you that we have modular refinery licenses. And in a modular refinery, it costs only about $75 million to get 20,000 barrels, and all that stories goes on. So you can see that there are discussions that we have to have on the supply side.
Okay. Prof, can you hear me? Hello, Prof, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. What kind of direction or what kind of role do you see the CBN playing in this new arrangement? Do you see the CBN coming in perhaps to supply dollars to the market when there is when there is no supply, as it were? And
I don't know if I don't know if you're asking CBN to print dollars. I don't think they'll be allowed to print dollars.
No, but where was the CBN getting the dollars it was using to supply the market before, Prof? Was it printing the dollars?
Okay, let me explain.
Yes.
We continue to borrow in dollars, are we not? When you borrow that dollar, like this $800 million World Bank wants to give, it will go to CBN. And CBN will add it to the money that it will disburse. Part of it will be used to still service some of the loans. And so we'll continue to borrow dollars. And then also we have diaspora remittance. You have different programs that they had. One of them, I think they have closed down, the RT $200. So all of that stuff, they were all attempts to bring in more dollars, to see how they can stimulate the market to bring in more dollars, to enable them disburse. So that's that. But there are many more things that you can do. I think that, which was one thing I disagree with on World Bank recommendation. We had 41 items, which was part of the demand management, where the bank said, look, we don't have this money, so we're not going to be persecuted for not funding 41 items. Please go and find your way. They pushed themselves out to the black market. And now CBN has also reiterated that they want to stay out of their NAFEX window. So stay where you are. And as long as they are out there in that cold end with the dollar, you will still continue to have issues around adequacy of dollar supply. But I think my own personal view is that should not come back. That 41 item should not come back. That's one. It should actually increase. The number should increase. And number two, we should add levy, because under the common external tariff of West ECOWAS, we are not going to increase the duties, because we have 0, 5%, 10%, 20, and 4 and 35. So we're not increasing that. But we can use levy instruments. And I've been saying this since 2017. Now, the minister in the last one put some 5%, and I say, well done, increase it. It should go as high as 20%, because you must send a very strong signal that you shouldn't be importing these goods. But we are part of WTO. If we ban them, it's a very bad signal. We embarrass our own, who is the WTO DG, and then all the countries affected are going to go to the tribunal. Nigeria will face really hot. So increase the duty on the levy instrument on those. Use them, and then restrict them. And then, you know what? You can actually be more radical and say, oh, if you must source dollar to buy these things, then pay us our duty in dollars. Or go and source the dollar for the duty. So in all of that, you push them, because if you try to bring them back into the NAFEC, you're going to cause more problem, because over the period they have been in the code there, some companies have started manufacturing some of those products in Nigeria. A lot of investment has gone in growing cotton, in funding the gineries, and the dress machines, all of them have invested. Now they will all disappear overnight. So that's why I'm saying that we have to keep them where they are and tighten up the screw so that we can get more dollar coming out into the system. That's one of the views. There are many other views of things you can do to increase the dollar supply. Quite
Hello,
a few
hello,
other
hello, hello,
things you can do.
microphone. Hello, 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 hello.
Okay. Um, Prof, let's take a look at the backlog of Forex. For example, the issue that Emirates has been having and some other companies in terms of you know, taking their dollars, which was really legally earned here, out. How do you think that that issue can be addressed? Because with this floating of the naira with the everyone should go to the market to source if you want to buy or if you want to sell the dollar. How do you think that that issue will be addressed? Because it seems to be hanging really.
Yeah, no, normally, if not for the fact that we have issues around our monetary policy, um, some of them we cannot avoid, especially the structural side of things. Floating this would have helped. Secondly, it could not help that much if we are not really exporting anything other than oil and gas. We don't have control over the pricing of oil and gas. Neither do we have control over the quantity you have to produce. What you may have control is in the blockages, all these people that are vandalizing and all that, so that you can actually try to meet your own quota. But if you look at the other area, is if we had more domestic capacity to refine the crude that we have, which I said is a big option, then we wouldn't even have been in this position at all, because all the dollar we're earning would have been more than enough to pay for all the services, all the requests that we have, including all these airlines and all of that. Now, by floating it the way it has been done, we are hoping that more people will bring in some of their dollars into the equation, and some are coming because more of the diaspora are now coming to that place to buy. Initially, some of them are buying, some are not buying. They are buying because of the incentive from CBN, then they just go and do direct transfers with their friends. But now some are coming, and then banks themselves have dollars. Banks have dollars. Don't forget, some of them are doing all this, the MoneyGram, this MoneyGram, all that stuff, and then stockpiling dollars. So some of their dollars will come on shore. Some of the
Prof,
manufacturers will also release.
Prof, if you can hear me, how much dollars do the banks have? Because if you're saying that they were stockpiling dollars, why does it take many months for people looking for BTA and PTA? Really, why must it take many months for people to really be on the line? If you say that they were stockpiling dollars and they had dollars, does it now
No,
mean that the banks were being
no,
deliberate in frustrating the
no,
managed
no,
flow
no,
system
no,
of the CBN at
not
that
at
time?
all. Not at all. That is not true. That's not what I mean.
Okay.
Some banks are trading abroad. They have branches abroad. They're trading, they're making money. Some of them are connected with these credit unions, Western Union. They're making money. So they are making some money outside of this country. And so some of them will bring some of this dollar onshore if the rates encourage them. And the same with some private sector. Nigerians have a lot of money abroad, not just those in the diaspora. So when the conditions are right, as are the rates are becoming more attractive, they bring some of their dollar onshore. So that's what I'm saying. But the issue is how sustainable is that going to be? Are they going to still be enough to meet the demand and that bridge that demand gap? So the answer is that it may not be enough. So what you are going to see is, if you're looking at a trajectory of because the thing keeps going up and down, going up and down. And then as it's going up and down, they're close, or the two rates are coming close, but they're all going up and down. But because we're having less dollar supply, it will be sliding down. It will be sliding down, but still going up and down and sliding down. So it is only when you have good supply that you can have it move in a straight line like that. So that is what I'm trying to say. So the end of that game is how do you increase the supply of dollar into the system? If you don't, it will continue to be, you may have a convergence of the rates, but absolutely they will still be heading downwards. And there are more things that you can do. If you remove one program, replace it with another successor program. that will still be encouraging export, encouraging those who have exported to bring down back some of that dollar. And then, you can also look at expatriation, this amnesty of and repatriation of dollars, and allow people to pay one-off tax and they regularize. And then I think one of the ones that are quite interesting is what the president himself mentioned during his speech. He talked about credit, consumer credit. And I can tell you that if you tie consumer credit expansion to our manufacturing capacity, not only that you are going to bring dollars here, but you're actually going to revive the industries. Let me give you an example. And Mrs. Thatcher did this in 1980 when I was doing my PhD. What he did was she brought in all these petrodollars and dollars from the Middle East and then allowed them to create consumer credits. And then many of the supermarkets came from America to establish. You have Asda, Tesco, all of them filled up the whole place. Now, let me give you an example. If a car manufacturer in Nigeria, and you know there are many of them now that are manufacturing cars, including in Northland, all these land, if they are making only 1,000 cars a year, or let me say 10,000 cars, if they are making only 10,000 cars a year, and it is possible for them to attract credit from these companies, bringing some dollars into the car and the license to do consumer credit targeted at the manufacturers. Now, this consumer credit would mean if I go to buy the car, I will put 10%, the credit will give them the remaining 90%. Now, Innocent and the others will use this dollar to import more materials, and then they will make more cars. They can even make 10 times more cars. Instead of 10,000 cars, they can make 100,000 cars a year. I'll drive off with the car. I will pay my payment over 3 years. And then next year, I'll come back and drop that car, take another car. The second-hand market starts increasing. Increasing against what? We are importing 400,000 second-hand cars through Cotonou alone. Twice what we import officially from Loro Port, Lagos. So the market that it is going to displace is there. People that are bringing 400,000 cars and Nigeria is not getting the duty because Benin will get the duty and then they'll drive it through porous borders. They are paying for it with dollars. They're not using Naira to pay for those 400,000 second-hand cars. So you achieve two things. One, no more than two. You have a flow of dollar to the manufacturing base. They are increasing the employment more than tenfold. You are increasing the supply of cars into the community. You are enabling people to buy these cars, and some of them are transport cars. They're all in there, not having to buy 100% cash. You stop all this cash, 100% cash to drive off a car. 100%. That's why they're going to patronize the imported second-hand. So you create that credit, but target it to the manufacturer. If you keep it as an open credit, people will start consuming. It will go into consumption, and that will cause a lot of inflation. So this is not rocket science, but it's targeted so that you can energize the people that are suffering. They can't. Studies suggest that 68% of manufacturers provide power for themselves 90% of the time. So if they have all these structural constraints, give them cash from wherever they comes, and they know they need liquidity. If they have that liquidity, then they will not be affected as much as they are now when they can't source their raw material. They are all waiting in the bank, CBN, to give them money. They can't get it. But license some of these guys. It will be a way for them to bring back some of their dollars into the country. The same with mortgages. The same thing with mortgages. Mortgages is even more pronounced because the diaspora want mortgages. We want to buy houses with the money. If you don't make it possible for us to invest in instruments that make us build more houses, then we'll go and spend the money. We'll give it to relatives to spend. You put down 10% or 20%, you walk into a house. You now start paying over 10 years.
Okay,
but the
Prof,
one that built the house, I can hear you.
Yes, Prof, sorry to cut you in. And in just about a minute, I would like you to come in on this point in terms of the removal of restrictions on domiciliary accounts in the country right now. How do you see that moving forward, at least in the short to mid term? Do you think that perhaps even the politicians that have stacked dollars, or those that have it, not necessarily only politicians, I don't know, there seems to be an endangered species in the country. But do you think that that will encourage people now that perhaps have had dollars or foreign currency in their houses or wherever they kept it to bring it to the banks right now, thereby influencing our supply? Very quickly
Yeah,
before we go.
that will, anything that will increase the flow of dollars in the economy will help, including this measure that you have just mentioned about easing out the restriction on the domiciliary accounts. And if they can even earn interest in the domiciliary account, that would even be better. So we do need, it's easier for you to have your money in our country, but in our domiciliary account than to float these monies elsewhere. And then, sometimes the details of that accounts are never found. And if somebody dies, the families can't even access the money that they have all over there in the foreign banks. So I think it's a good thing, it's a good move.
Okay.
But also bear in mind that there are consequences for not taking these steps immediately.
Where do you see the naira, naira's value moving forward? Yesterday at the I&E window, it ended at 768. I think 2 days ago it was about 741. So the naira is trading around the range of over 700. In the midterm, where do you see the naira? Because that was part of what was being canvassed, that if you float the naira, it will find its value, and perhaps later we would have a stable exchange rate.
Well, as I said, under normal circumstances, there is going to be convergence of the two rates, but they will be converging and you still have the oscillation. That oscillation is still going to continue, but it will be drifting down until you have significant injection of dollars into the system. What may happen is that it may not be that bad though, because we have a president that is super active. He is all over the place right now. He's bringing in Bank of America to come and talk to us. We never had that before. He's gone to Paris to make some strong statements, that you're going to allow us to use what we have. What we have is gas. So he's moving, and he's got that magnetic character. He's bringing everybody in. People are excited about the boldness of the attempt that he has made to call the shot. Even if he read it outside his text, he doesn't care. He wants to do it, and he's, an entrepreneur is driven by is the nose that he has. That is what made him say what he said. He just fired those shots and then let us deal with the consequence. But then it's attracting a lot of interest, people. So more people will get excited and then bring their money and then bring their investment.
Okay.
And that's the value that you are going to get in his leadership style. So I'm very optimistic that sooner than later. And then there are other proposals that have been going to him, which I'm aware of, about other vistas of economic opportunities. And he's open to them, which is fantastic. So I'm sure we are going to get by sooner than later.
Okay. All right. I think at that note, we should end this interview, Prof. Thank you for joining us. I know that you're busy there in Kefi, Nasarawa State. So do have a lovely day. We'll leave it at that right now, and have a safe trip back to Abuja when you return. I've been speaking with Professor Ken Ife, who is a development economist, and we've been talking about the